Hi, I am Nicole Kligerman. I am the Pennsylvania Director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. We are the leading voice for this country's 2.5 million domestic workers, including nannies, house cleaners, and caregivers. We have 287,000 members across the country. And I'm talking a little bit about the Philadelphia Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, which was unanimously passed by Philadelphia City Council in October of 2019 and is going into effect on May 1st, 2020. So, a little bit of background. Domestic workers have been excluded from almost all local, state, and federal labor protections since the passage of the 1930s New Deal era labor laws. And that's because, in order for those laws to be passed, domestic workers were specific, and farm workers were specifically exempt because because domestic workers were the descendants of enslaved people, and to get a white Southern congressman to vote for those kind of foundational labor laws, domestic workers and agricultural workers were specifically cut out. So today there are 16,000 domestic workers in Philadelphia who make an average of about $10,000 a year, according to a study that we did with Penn. So the Philadelphia Domestic Worker Bill of Rights, which was written and fought for and won by Philly domestic workers, extends critical labor protections for the very first time in Philadelphia history. So to talk a little bit about your new rights. One, it includes domestic workers and discrimination protections for the very first time. Previously, domestic workers were the only kind of worker that didn't have Philly's expanded civil rights protections. It provides meal and rest breaks, so a 10-minute paid break for every 4 hours consecutively worked, and a 30-minute unpaid lunch for every 5 hours worked. If you work, if you're unable to leave, for instance, the baby you're caring for, to take an uninterrupted meal break, that 30 minutes will be paid out at the end of the shift. It provides a mandated day off for live-in workers, so that's people whose home is the same as where they work. It provides written agreements in English and the preferred language of the worker to say what your job responsibilities are, when you're getting paid, how much you're getting paid, what happens if you're asked to do more work, and anything else that you want to negotiate with your employer. And that's a legally binding document to protect you when and if your rights are violated. It provides a notice of termination, so you can't be fired from one day to the next. Your employer needs to give you 2 weeks notice for workers who are not live-in, and 4 weeks notice for workers who are live-in. And if they don't give you that notice, then they have to pay you severance for that prorated amount of time. It also provides important protections against labor trafficking. Employers cannot hold the original identity documents of workers, such as your passport or visa or driver's license, as well as prohibit surveillance in private areas of the home, such as a bathroom, a place where the domestic worker is sleeping or living, and any place where you would change your clothes. Pretty wild that needs to be legislated against, but we know the world we're living in. It also provides for the country's first ever portable paid time off system for workers who have more than one employer. And that's not going into effect on May 1st because the logistics of that are taking a little bit longer. But that means that domestic workers will have up to a week's paid time off. Most people have never had this before, and it doesn't matter if you have one employer or multiple employers. Every employer will need to pay their fair share, their aggregated amount. So if you work for one person for 40 hours a week or 40 people for 1 hour each a week, then you still are getting the same amount of time off, and that's particularly important for house cleaners who easily have 50 clients at a time and will never work for one employer long enough to accrue enough time to be able to get that full week. And it also provides important ways to hold bosses accountable. All complaints will go through the Mayor's Office of Labor, who will do an investigation and be able to levy fines and issue other responses to your employer so that they actually do have to follow the law. And And lastly, it also creates a domestic workers task force in City Hall, which I think is the first job type specific task force of its kind that will include workers on it and meet regularly and be open to the public. So you are all welcome to attend those meetings in order to monitor how the law is going and continue to make improvements upon it. And that's a really important way that domestic workers can continue to have a voice in City Hall. And I really invite everyone to participate. So thank you for listening and congratulations on your new rights.